guys, look at that chart, how massive this is. Buildings have collapsed, trains have stopped, people ran out of their homes in panic. It's starting again at Campi Flegrei, 4.4. This is super high, and boy, I have a feeling these high ones, they're coming at lesser time frames, so compared to when the last one was hitting, and it comes with a massive earthquake swarm again. That's what's so concerning. And just when the INGV said we need more monitoring systems, we need more, even more than they already have, but everything's under control, don't worry. Well, I do worry, I have to tell you, and I'll tell you why in this video. But first, let's have a look at this massive, massive earthquake swarm that is still ongoing right now. So check this out. Let's check out here, starting with the 4.4. But if we look at the date, it basically already started on May 12th with a 1.8, followed by a 2.0, 1.1, all in the ones, a 2.1. And I'm only showing you the ones above magnitude 1. There's way more than that, way more microseismic events that come with these as well. And then we had a 2.1, and then just shortly after this 4.4, and then only just a few minutes later the 3.5. Can you imagine how the people are rattled again, how they're shaken again so shortly after each other? And then shortly after that, a 1.9, a 1.6, basically just seconds later, and minutes later, 1.2, and then it goes on, and then again another 3.3, followed by a 2.7 and 1.2, 1.0. And if you look to the right side, they're all shallow. That's why they're felt quite intensely. So basically, it's a constant rattling for these poor residents around the epicenter of these earthquakes. And where is the epicenter? Let's check this out, and it's no surprise to us if we zoom in. It's right in Pozzuoli again, where the Solfatara is, that most active crater with the fumaroles. It's in the water this time. It's basically in the port of Pozzuoli, but it's absolutely no surprise where this epicenter is. And we can go back and look at the 3.5 that followed. I mean, you have to look at the list, guys. 4.4, 3.5, 2.1, 3.3, 2.7 for a volcano. This is a lot. So where's the 3.5? I assume it's right in the same spot, and it's on land this time, but basically the same area. And let's check out the 3.3 where we have that one. And also, no surprise, it's rumbling underneath the volcano. And that's what's so concerning. If we look at this list, this is another massive, massive earthquake swarm. The seismic unrest at Campi Flegrei raises concerns, and has been raising concerns from people that work in leading positions at the INGV, the institute that observes this. And they've been warning since 2018, because Italy's Campi Flegrei supervolcano is one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world, and it's showing signs of growing activity, and more studies find more and more concerning stuff. In my last video, I told you they found the weak spot of the volcano, an area right where we have these epicenters right now, where the rocks are so brittle that they create a weakness, a way for the magma to reach the surface. And researchers said when they found this just recently, whoa, we did not expect that. And magma is at a way more shallow depth than previously thought. And the thing is, they have just recently found that there were more eruptions at Campi Flegrei than they thought. So a study has suggested that past eruptions were more frequent and more powerful than previously thought. So what does that tell us for the current situation? Because we have ongoing seismic swarms, we have ongoing accelerated ground deformation, and that raises concerns about future risks, because they found out that there was a massive eruption 109 years ago as well, in a similar scale to the one that was the explosion that formed the caldera 40,000 years ago. So this sharp increase in how they call these swarms, burst-like seismic swarms, and this ground uplift that has accelerated since 2021 but has already started in 2005 is pointing to continued volcanic unrest. So all of this, according to seasoned researchers, they're saying, quote, it changes the perception of the risk of Campi Flegrei being active again. These seismic swarms, they're defined as burst-like. They manifest themselves with a rapid sequence of small earthquakes and bigger earthquakes, as we are seeing today. It makes it so difficult to distinguish the individual events because it's such a cluster. And researchers are noting that similar swarms in other volcanic systems have been linked to phreatic explosions or critical phases of unrest, guys. And researchers go as far as saying, of course, this volcano, this area, this volcanic activity requires close surveillance, but they go as far as not just Campi Flegrei should be considered a potential eruption zone. The whole Campanian plain, this is the area, this is a very widespread area. And if you look at Naples, that squeeze between Vesuvius that is showing larger earthquakes, I've made a video about this, and Campi Flegrei, we're talking about more than 6 million people. So today, people were also evacuating their homes. This 4.4 earthquake has caused damage. Thankfully, it was an uninhabited building that has collapsed in Via Campania, but it also has caused a landslide on Monte Gauro. So there is damage, and more information is coming in about the damage. But these poor people, how often do they have to run out on the streets again? If you see the pictures, it's just crazy. This time it was daytime. It was not at night, which is a little bit better. You see a picture here of the Via Campania. It's closed now because of the collapse of the building. And that's the problem with the whole evacuation system that they have worked out last year. You have to get to the Via Tangenziale, the major highway that has a lot of bridges and, in my opinion, is also very, very under threat from these earthquakes, because if that Tangenziale is damaged, there's no evacuation. So the plan is everyone goes up the roads to that Via Tangenziale. But if buildings are collapsing and are blocking these designated evacuation routes that get you access to the Via Tangenziale, what can you do then? It's total chaos. And if this happens at night, and should there already be a phreatic eruption, oh my God, because seasoned scientists are saying it can come with no warning because the magma underneath is already in an explosive state. There have been reports of other minor damages in other houses. A rock wall has collapsed at Monte Gauro. That's in the area of the Air Force Academy. That is also right at the Solfatara, basically. Right now, no injuries at the moment. Major of Pozzuoli, Gigi Manzoni, says, or is trying to assure the population, he says, quote, there are no critical issues. Yeah, except from the volcano that's brewing underneath, and that's giving you one warning after the other. Right now, they're doing checks on buildings to see if any buildings have sustained some damage that would make them unsafe, uninhabitable. Members of the municipality of Pozzuoli and also the civil protections are out in the field. Good thing that partially collapsed building was already a ruin, they're saying, and it was also in a state of abandonment. Then, when also the other earthquakes happened, the 3.3, the 2.7, and all these others, they reported further damage in the area of Via Solfatara, near the epicenters. There was a press conference from the mayor of Pozzuoli around 2:30 p.m. and he says, we recorded these strong tremors. We were in the process of slowing down the land rise to 1.5 centimeters a month. I don't know if I would call that slowing down, because it's still above the norm very, very much. And he says, well, we're kind of surprised the parameters were not excessive compared to this phenomenon of seismic activity. And they're always saying that in the public, but the seasoned surveilling scientists are saying something else. And he says, well, the important thing is to be ready. And he lines out that there was panic even in schools. Well, it was noon. People were in school. They did set up waiting areas immediately. Volunteers and law enforcement were deployed. He promises that they will carry out checks on buildings, schools, and public buildings. People were so upset after the last big quake because it took them so long. He says, at the moment we do not see any major critical issues, only fear and a lot of anxiety among the population. Only? This is completely justified. This is a supervolcano. And he says, the bradyseism phenomenon will never go away. We must work to live with it. This is also extremely controversial to what the scientists say, what Giuseppe Di Natale says, leading researcher, seasoned researcher at the INGV, and he says, this is not true. Campi Flegrei does not have and did not have in the past constant bradyseism. That means the land is rising, earthquake swarms, and all that stuff that we're seeing right now. Only, he said, it only showed bradyseism periods before an eruption and after an eruption. And then it had very quiet periods, hundreds of years of being quiet with nothing. And he is criticizing that the authorities are kind of declaring this as normal, because it is not. I understand they don't want to create fear and panic amongst more than 6 million people, because what are your options? Should you evacuate everyone right now? Where to evacuate? Abandon Naples? Of course it sounds crazy, but with a calculated, clear mind, yeah, that would be the thing that you would have to do. I know this has never been done anywhere in the world. Let's talk about the railway system. They have stopped the trains to carry out the necessary static checks. There's lots of tunnels, there's lots of railway bridges. The same thing, they have a high-speed train. I always worry, like high-speed trains in earthquake-prone areas. So everything that was destined to Naples has been slowed down. So when this 4.4 hit at 12:07, it was a strong but also a long shock. That's what residents reported, and it was preceded by a roar. Again, this sound as if a missile's coming in and hitting you, and then a long shaking. It was felt throughout the city of Pozzuoli, but also in Naples. Many people were scared and came to the streets. Citizens are still talking about this long undulating shock that shook the buildings as well for several seconds, and it was felt especially in the upper floors of the buildings. The Minister of Civil Protection, Nello Musumeci, has called for a civil protection summit. He has gathered the emergency summit in Rome with the heads of the civil protection and the Casa Italia departments to verify the technical activities in the Campi Flegrei area. Oh, is this great that they're meeting in Rome? They're always meeting and talking. It drives me a little bit crazy. The volcanic risk alert still remains yellow. That means the state of attention. Yeah, that is. They just do not want to raise it to orange, because that would trigger evacuations. So we're getting close to at least 30 shocks, that 30 larger, strongly felt 30 shocks, with more microseismic shocks. When they analyzed the seismograph, the dramatic length of the wave that they're seeing, and therefore the duration of the earthquake, is very unusual and concerning. There's very long oscillations that went out of scale. with respect to the seismograph and how long they were. The estimate is that it is a 4.4, but it's still a provisional estimate that could be revised the next few hours. So far, the earthquake that just happened March 13th this year, magnitude 4.6, remains the strongest of the last 40 years. And as far as I remember, they had the 4.6 at 4.4 at first, and then they made it higher, which is unusual. Usually they grade it down. What we've seen in Santorini just also yesterday. I have reported about this. It seems that everything's repeating there too. The same earthquake swarm that happened in February is maybe restarting. Strong earthquakes, 4.9. Crazy. I put that video in the end screen, guys. You should really watch that as well. Headquarters of the Federico II University of Naples has been evacuated. Alarm system went off. Students rushed outside the building. Schools in the Campi Flegrei area were evacuated. Pozzuoli. Schools in the historic center of Naples were also evacuated. In Procida, 500 students also were evacuated. Students left and reached the designated assembly point as required by the safety protocols. Mayor keeps saying it's a seismic swarm, keep calm. But we know these seismic swarms can precede other volcanic events. Giuseppe Di Natale, a volcanologist who's been warning about this for a very, very long time and is not happy about this being played down as it is by public officials, has also said today, as long as the ground uplift is lasting, and it is, these tremors will continue. It must be said that even if the uplift speed has slowed down compared to March, where it was really accelerating, going up to 3 centimeters a month. Now it's 1.5 centimeters a month. But before that, it has been 1 centimeter a month. It's still, he says, be aware, this still is high compared to the period before February 15th, when that accelerated massive earthquake swarm started. Francesca Bianco, she is the director of the INGV. She said, well, an increase in the ground uplift has not been observed, and therefore she thinks it's nothing to worry about. I find her interviews are always like, don't worry about this. And then her scientists and other leading positions, they're always ringing the alarm a little bit more. What she is saying, and that is interesting, she said all the earthquakes, the stronger ones, the epicenters, were recorded at the same depth, at about 3 kilometers. And the strongest event, the 4.4, was located at sea near the current port of Pozzuoli. And she said and that's interesting, that is a circumstance that means that the propagation wave has also reached areas of Vesuvius, such as Torre del Greco and Ercolano. They also felt the shaking. The director of the Vesuvius Observatory that is connected with the INGV, Mauro Di Vito, said, at the moment, they're always trying to word that very careful, at the moment there are no signs that indicate an evolution. Wow, this is quite a strong earthquake swarm, which is why the alert level for the Campi Flegrei remains yellow. He explains that the surveillance network is perfectly active. We continue to monitor minute by minute, but it's essential to avoid alarmism, as the data does not indicate worrying evolutions. Our priority is to provide correct and transparent information to the citizens. Okay, well, researchers and scientists from his own institute are ringing the alarm bell and have been begging for years. Could we at least evacuate Pozzuoli and the area around Pozzuoli, 500,000 to 700,000 people? But they are only begging at least 80,000 people. That sit right on top of where we could see a phreatic explosion or whatever eruption. But it's not happening. Giuseppe Mastro Lorenzo, seasoned researcher, works for the INGV. He's begging for evacuations. But then the officials, The official version is always, don't worry. Guys, I will keep you updated about this. You know this. If you're new here, you should subscribe. Check out my Campiflegrei playlist, because there's all these new studies that really raise a question mark whether this is really safe there. If that was another volcanic area where just a few people lived there, they would have forced them out there, I'm pretty sure. It's difficult. There's tourism season, there's home values, real estate. It's Naples, more than 6 million people, right? I think that's why they're keeping the lid on this a little bit. Don't worry. And they're hoping for the best. This is my opinion, guys. If you liked it, leave this video a like, share it with your friends, come back to this channel. Check out the videos in the end screen. There's interesting stuff, especially about Santorini, guys, because I think it's repeating there. Interestingly, at the same time, like Campiflegrei, again, it was like February, March, Campiflegrei was acting up like crazy and Santorini was crazy. It seems everything's repeating right now. So check this out. If you want to support the channel, guys, I have a buymeacoffee.com/silky site. The link is in the description. I see you there. I see you here. Stay safe. Be prepared, guys. Until the next one. Bye-bye.